Well, hello there. If you're a child of the 80s, you probably read one of these. We're going to be starting off painting all the different miniatures from the range of Blue Giant Studios, and we're going to be starting with Citadel of Chaos. Absolutely awesome books, these. If you haven't read one, go read one. But I'll flick to the page, and we're going to be starting off painting a Ganji. So we're going to go through it and hope it helps. Put them down there. Next you need Wraithbone colour. You're never going to get good at painting unless you can paint white to start with, and it makes the mini pop as well. Don't worry if it moves around a bit. All you need is a dry brush. These are pretty wicked. Army Painter small dry brush, or just nick your wife's makeup brush, they're just as good. Then another one, Army Painter War Games the Psycho. This is for eyes and the teeth, so we're going to get on with that after, and I'll show you step by step. Shazam! These are all the paints you need. Evil Scar Sun for the eyeballs, Storm Vermin for the base. This contrast paint is just for shading. That's the actual paint we're going to be painting with, and everything we're going to add hues to the different paints to make it the same colour but a bit bolder each time. Screaming Skull, always for the teeth, bit of null oil, eyes. Right, let's get going with this. Oh, and a bit of this. I've already mixed it up for the consistency. I've just painted it on top like that, and then you want to, once you've painted that all over, you want to add a bit more white to each, give it a bit more hue. Then you want to paint on the corners around the outside. Bit more white. So already you've got a subtle shade from white to darker grey, and then to light white again. You can see that. Right, so now we'll be painting the Ganji. First, Army Painter Toxic Mist, a nice coat all over it. Be careful when you're painting around the eyes though, and the teeth here. You want to leave that. Right, so we've painted it. I'm going to leave it to dry. We'll do the shading in a minute, but first let's go back to the base while this is drying. Right, so now onto the base. Null oil, literally just dip in, get about that much on your brush, get a full brush full, and already you can start to see it pooling and just shading. You don't want it to pull too much. See these bits here? Just try and brush them into the gaps so you get the texture. So there we go. That's the first bit of the base. And then while this is drying, we will go back to the Ganji and give it a coat. Boom. So right, next up, this is a great colour, really vibrant. It's the Contrast from Games Workshop, and we're going to be coating all of the Mini pretty liberal. And yeah, let's get going. This will start to give you all the depth and shading. But like I said, you can skip the first stage with the Toxic Mist, but it gives it a great underlying coat and brings it quite a lot up. Oh yeah. You can already see it starting to come together. All that pool in there, you've got to make sure you move all that around. Make sure all the pooling though, move it around. It will just look so bad when you're finished otherwise. See that all there? Just try and spread it all around the Mini. Get a nice even coat. Don't know if you can see that, but make sure there's no pooling. If you go over the eyes a bit, don't worry, because later on we'll be painting them white. See the difference from the front to the back, what we haven't done before. Front, oh, it's the back. So if you watch, I'll do the top half first to see the difference. It's pulling all the highlights there. If you can see that. Look at the top to the back. We're definitely starting to get a good shade on that now. Look at that. We're starting to get that ghostly feel. I'll try and pull it up a bit. See, the other paint before, the Toxic Mist, is just starting to poke through a little bit. It's in all the contrast now. Right, while we're waiting for this, we'll have a little chat about the old Citadel Chaos and what we're going to do next. Laters. Right, so if you can see, I've just speeded up that process and I've painted all of the tiny little bits around the outside with white, with that tiny little detail brush. And if you look from afar, it really makes it pop and start to look like concrete. But while we're waiting for the other bit to dry, I like to listen to a tiny bit of rave. Oh yes, yo. Hear me now, Fighting Fantasy crew, over to you. Now we're going to use Screaming Skull for the teeth. So we just paint the teeth now. Make sure you're extra careful here. The neater you are, the less you've got to tidy up around it. I mean, swap the Mini upside down if you find it easier to paint the other eye. So, I mean, it's totally up to you. You can either leave it red like it is, if you're happy with that, or you can go the extra mile. Try and show you. I've got literally the tiniest little bit of black on the brush, and you're going to just dab it on in the middle to create a pupil. I can't stress how delicate you must be with this bit. See, so you've got a pupil and the tiniest little bit of red around it. See it? And if you want to add a tiny bit more red, you can go back to your stage before, which I feel like it just needs that tiny bit more red round it. So if you can see, I've just added the tiniest bit more red round it. Just gives it that extra depth. I mean, look at him. He looks a right little monster, doesn't he? So you can leave the mini here if you like. I mean, he looks pretty cool, doesn't he? But as it's for my friend, I'm going to go around and pick out all the highlights. And Jason, I hope you're happy with the figure so far. Leave comments below if you think there's anything I've missed, what you'd want a bit more tutorial. But I'm going to paint everything with a white just to pick out the highlights. So if you're wondering what I mean with a highlight of white, I'm going to mix 50% of Screaming Skull and 50% of the white, what we've had before, just to pick out the extra details on the teeth. And then we're going to be using the old Toxic Mist with 50% of Toxic Mist, i.e. one brush of this and one brush of white, just to pick out all the details of his lips, etc. Any highlights you've missed. So I'm going to go and do that now, and then I'll come and show you the finished product. Right, so I'll just show you about picking out the highlights. I've put 50% of white on the brush and 50% of Screaming Skull, and we're just going to tip the edges. Just brings out that extra highlight of it. I'll go round the teeth again and all of the mini, and then we'll have the finished product for you to have a look at.